I know, I'll just start. Whoever comes, comes. It's weird to just sit and stare at a screen. So hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. Um, what I want to talk about tonight, you saw the title. I titled the class is Psychology of Yom Hazikaron. And I'm sorry if that was confusing. Yom Hazikaron is Memorial Day in Israel, but it's also one of the names of Rosh Hashanah. And I titled it specifically with that name, which will hopefully connect as we continue the class. So what I want to talk about is basically, if anyone, I mean, I see most of you know me here, but for those who know me or don't know me, a little background is I was a psych major, and then I also learned education. So psychology and Tanach are two of my passions, and I actually got the idea for this class because I was going through Facebook, and I saw someone I know is doing a series called The Psychology of Tshuva, and it sort of, I didn't even look at the class, but it just triggered me to have that idea of psychology, Tshuva, Rosh HaShana. So I sort of went down that road. And so what we're going to do tonight is talk about two theories of in psychology by two different professors, doctors. And I want to talk about those two theories to begin with, and then we're going to connect them to what's going on or what should be going on Rosh Hashanah. So that's a little intro. Okay, so I'm going to share with you a screen so we could see some slides. Hold on, share screen. So this is, let me just do present so you could see. Hold on, why can't I do present here? Okay. So this is Carol Dweck. She is a professor of psychology. As far as I know, she's currently teaching at Stanford, based on when I looked her up again. She taught at Harvard, Columbia, a bunch of pretty prestigious places. She has a lot of like official things in different psychology groups, and she came up with this theory basically called it's a mindset theory, and it's about she divides the way you could look at things as the growth mindset and the fixed mindset. And I actually first came across this theory when I was in education, when I was redoing my degree, because I moved to Israel and I had to redo my degree, so that's a whole other story. But anyway, and the professor brought in this theory in terms of how to deal with your students, and I think it's just such an amazing theory in terms of how you deal with not only students, yourself, your friends, any relationship, God, I think it's really an important theory, which I'll talk about tonight. So basically the fixed mindset is the belief that skills, intellect, and talent are set and unchangeable. So what does that mean? Someone who has a fixed mindset thinks like, this is it. I have this amount of knowledge. I have this amount of skill, and I really can't grow from there. Like, this is who I am. Not necessarily that it's predetermined, but I can't really do much to change it. Like if I'm good at cooking, like no, like I'm good at cooking. It's not necessarily that I worked hard at it, or if I'm not good at cooking, then I'm not good at it. Like it is what it is. Now, growth mindset is the belief that skills, intellect, talent can be developed throughout practice and perseverance. So someone with a growth mindset believes that my ability, my skills are not fixed. I can be really bad at something, but I have the ability to use my practice and my effort to better those skills. So I bought a few graphs here, and I'm gonna focus on a few things in a few of the graphs, because I think there's so many different things that it affects so many different things in day-to-day life. So here we see it affects the desire to do something, right? I'll stick to what I know. Either I'm good at it or I'm not, right? It's a very big safety net, right? If I know I'm good at something, I'll do that. If I know that something's challenging to me, I'm gonna veer away from that because I might fail. And let's jump. How does someone with the fixed mindset view failure? Any setback it's easy to give up. It's this is like, I have no option to get out of this, so I don't want to try if I know I'm not going to do well. As opposed to someone has a growth mindset, they're going to look at every opportunity and say, okay, I'm not so good at this, but I want to be better at it, so I'm eager to learn. It's someone with a growth mindset always wants to learn and improve. And they think, okay, I have these skills, but how can I improve those skills? Even if I'm good at it, right? It's not a matter of fixed and growth mindset is not saying a person with a fixed mindset is bad at it and the growth mindset is good. No, they can have the same ability, but it's all about how they view that ability. And one thing here also I want to focus on this slide on the bottom is the way they view peers, others, right? If someone's talented, they look at it as, oh, they're talented because it must be easier for him, or he's smarter, and that's just the way it is. As opposed to someone with a growth mindset that says, I wonder how they did it. Let me try to figure it out, okay? And this is a kind of concept in Judaism called kinat sofrin, right? You should be jealous of those that are better than you in terms of learning and their skills, and say, what are they doing that I could be doing better? Like, wow, that person has such, good character, or they're able to be such a good friend, or wow, I see they do so much chesed. And not say, oh, I'm so bad. I put yourself down and say, oh, it must be that that's easy for them, or it must be that I'm not good at that. No, I should look at them and see what skills can I learn from them, okay? So that, we'll talk about that again in a second, but that's part of the growth mindset. Another part of the growth mindset is how they view mistakes, what I want to focus on, growth and fixed mindset. So the way they view mistakes is, oh, hi, Soph, hate them. They try to avoid them, okay? So this goes back to the fact of not wanting to fail, okay? I avoid a mistake at any cost. So this really could block you doing a lot of things in your life, because if you don't feel like you have the ability to do them, you're not going to try, you're not going to risk that failure. As opposed to someone with a growth mindset who says, okay, I failed. Now, what do I learn from this? What do I take from that? Okay, how do I take that feedback from the world that I didn't do good in X, Y, and Z, and I persevere, right? It talks about giving a grit, right? I persevere through grit. I work hard. I don't look at this as something that's going to debilitate me. I look at it as something that's going to teach me so that I could get better. Okay, and here's something that's very important, is the main concern of a person in their mind that has a fixed mindset is how I'm going to look to everyone else. Oh, if I try this and I fail, everyone's going to be telling me I'm a screw up. Everyone's going to be saying she can't do it or whatever. As opposed to something that says, as with a growth mindset, where my main concern is, how can I improve? I don't care what this one thinks of me, what that one thinks of me. I'm my own judge, so to speak. The only person I necessarily have to answer to. So I'm going to see, how can I get better? Okay, and here I like this image with the brain that's locked and the brain that has a flower, in terms of, like, it really just puts it. It's like, I really do feel, the more I was reading about the growth mindset, the fixed mindset and the growth mindset, is the fixed mindset literally causes someone to not want to improve and just stay at the status quo. And here also they blame others for failures. They don't necessarily take accountability, because they don't want to acknowledge that maybe my effort wasn't good enough, or maybe I need to pivot and shift and think of something else. As opposed to someone with a growth mindset, where they'll look at the challenges in life as an opportunity, and they're not afraid to fail because they are aware that failure is part of life. So I like to try new things because I don't know where they will lead me, and I want to learn from them, right? The main thing here is the growth mindset is learning is the goal. A lot of this says what we already said, but I just love this image because I think it really shows, like, in a glance, like, it's literally the fixed mindset, black and white thinking, very yes or no, all or nothing, as opposed to the beauty of the messiness of the growth mindset. Like, you see all the colors, all the overlap, like, that's what it's all about, is persistence, is the setbacks, is that whole cycle and process.
Jan.
Yeah.
I just have a question. Like, I don't know if you could even answer this, but what do you think determines what kind of mindset someone's going to have, like, by default? Like, is this a personality trait? Is this the way that you're brought up, the way you're nurtured?
I mean, I think that's a bigger psychological question, nature versus nurture, your disposition. I think a lot of things will affect it, but I mean, maybe I'm a little bit like, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I think that we live in a world that as a whole promotes a fixed mindset and not a growth mindset. And I think the whole system of a world that we live in, I was going to say this later, but I'll say now because you brought it up, I mean, you could totally disagree with me, but I just feel in my own life, maybe it's my own psyche, but I feel like in my own life that the world as a whole and culture as a whole is really promotes a fixed mindset. And you are what you are in, and if you have to work too hard, then especially in Israel, like, oh, don't be a friar, like don't let people step over you. Don't, like, this sort of the attitude of, if you have to try too hard, you're not good at it, or it's not worth it. And I think that a little bit, yes, it's nature versus nurture, and it's what you're taught at home, and it's what you see, and all of that, and what but I think also, as a whole, unfortunately, I think the culture, especially as a teacher in school, I mean, maybe you could disagree, but it's very, and I'm going to talk about this in a second, it's very hard to get your students, at least for me, I find a lot of students are stuck in the fixed mindset. Did I get it right? Did I get it right? Did I get it wrong?
Right.
Like, they don't necessarily want to know why it was right or wrong, or what they could do to improve. They just want to know, well, did I, so I think that it's yes, as is everything. It's part of how you're raised in the home, and more type A, type B personalities, more, all those things. But I think a lot of it, unfortunately, is that culture does promote fixed mindset. And I think that was, I mean, when my professor gave us this art, that we read this article in school, she was really trying to say, like, and I'm going to bring it up in a minute, as a teacher, how important it is to instill in your students the growth mindset, because I'll show you in a minute how it really affects so many things. So this is just a little, I like this because it gives you practical things to self-talk about changing your mindset. I'll just read a couple of them, because I'm taking over, I'm talking about this a lot, I want to move on to other things, but just a couple is, instead of thinking I can't do it, think I'm still learning, I'm going to try, right? Or it's too hard, so what, with practice I can get, it will get easier. Or I'm afraid of making mistakes. Mistakes are how I can learn, right? I don't know how. I think this is the key one. I don't know how. I can learn how. And I think that if we, as if you're, I think everyone, whether they're a teacher, a parent, a friend, everyone has contact with especially children, but anyone in your life that's going through anything. I think that key of I don't know how to shift to I can learn how is something that's very important in making the mindset change. And here, the growth mindset drives motivation and achievement. How? The growth mindset says, I can get smarter, right? I have the ability, it's not fixed. So learning is my goal, and effort makes me stronger. So I spend time working hard, and then I achieve more. Okay, that's the goal, that's the mean. And this graph, this is what Doris was saying about students, is they did a study where the teachers were told to praise only the intelligence and say, and not the effort, say you're so smart, you're so great, just only on your intelligence and your capability. And they saw that it started going down the students' ability to solve the problems. But the other hand, when the teacher was told to praise the effort as opposed to the outcome, as opposed to like, for example, you're working so hard, I see you put a lot of thought into that, I see you're really taking your time to check your work, or whatever it may be, then then it went significantly higher. Okay, so I think that's not only something we could take for teaching, it's and obviously you could if you're a teacher, but I think it's something you could take for any relationship, especially with yourself, because when you're stuck in a situation that's complicated, and they always, like, I mean, I've heard this many times, but you talk to yourself more than anyone else talks to you, meaning your brain, you're always hearing your brain, right? So the way you talk to yourself is going to be the narrative that you live by. So if you shift your narrative, not to a narrative of, oh, I can't do this, or I'm not good at it, instead of saying, I'm working so hard, it's a challenge, I'm building on myself, all those type of things, you will slowly improve. Okay, and this visual I think is also great. It's just the ladder, and it's a challenge. It's hard to go from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. Is a big, it's an uphill climb. It's going up the ladder. It's something that if you have that mindset, it does take a lot of self-work to shift. So I'm going to pause on the growth mindset for a second. We're going to come back to it. Now I want to talk about another, I think I shouldn't say professor, I think he's doctor. I wrote this down. Let me just double check because I don't want to mislabel. I think, yeah, he's a doctor. and his name is Tal Ben-Shachar. He's Israeli, but he studies and teaches in Harvard. And he teaches positive psychology. And what he talks about, he wrote a bunch of books, very recommended. He talks about how to live essentially a happier life. What is that? Like positive psychology about being happier. And he talks in his books a lot about people always thinking, well, if you teach positive psychology and you're so happy, then and that's what you're talking about, then why are you always happy? And he talks about in his book the difference between the perfectionist and the optimalist. And what he talks about is that someone who is truly happy, essentially, and I'm going to talk about what this means in a second, is someone who lives as an optimalist as opposed to a perfectionist. And what does that mean? Is that a perfectionist, like it sounds, is a very black and white, all or nothing thinker. It's either perfect or it's not, right? The journey is a straight line from A to B. They're afraid of failure. They're only focusing on the destination. They're very rigid and static, right? And this sounds like someone with the fixed mindset. The optimalist, on the other hand, sees journey as an irregular spiral. They see it as a constant fluctuating thing. They see failure as feedback. Their focus is the journey and not the destination. They have a nuanced way of thinking, realizing that reality is messy and it's not A to B. It's a big process in between. They're more adaptable, they're more dynamic because they realize they're focused on reality. And what he says is here, this is the visual that he likes to bring out, that he brought in his book. He sees a perfectionist expectation is a straight line. And that never gets met. I mean, I don't know about any of you, but I don't think anything in life, as far as I know, ever goes so simple like that, of just a line like that, A to B. Optimalist expectations are, as you see, a little messy, a squiggle, goes this way, goes that way, a little better, a little worse, right? So that's where he says that if you focus on that, right, and this is also a nice way of looking at it, what people think is you win or you fail. It's all or nothing. But in reality, people who are successful know that it's you win a little bit, you fail. You win a little bit, you fail. Like I don't even want to use the word fail, but you go a little forward and you fall back. And the key is, and this is not a new, Chazal has talked about this topic. This is not a chidush, right? Because the Chazal, in Mishleh, Shlomo HaMelech, he talks about Ki sheva yipol sadik vekam u'reshaim yachshilenu bera'a, right? What defines someone as a sadiq, or what attribute does a sadiq have? Like not that he defines by that, but what attribute does he have? He'll fall 7 times, but he'll get up. Right? It doesn't say the sadiq's never going to fall. He's perfect. No, he's going to fall several times, right? He's going to fall many times, but he gets up. He doesn't get stuck in his failure. The Reshaim, the Reshaim are going to end up getting stuck in their Resha, right? In their Ra. And I think that I said this a little bit before, but the reason I chose these 2 theories specifically to talk about is because I think they really complement each other. Because in order to really be as Tal Ben-Shachar talks about, an optimalist and a, sorry, I'm jumping over slides. What happened? No. Sorry. Okay. As he talks about a perfectionist, being an optimalist as opposed to perfectionist, and seeing the reality of the messy life, that's what someone with a growth, you have to have a growth mindset in order to do that. Okay. So, this is just very interesting in terms of the way you view yourself and others. There was a study in 1964, and actually, when I was researching this, I actually saw someone made a funny comment of like, oh, the 60s, and we could do psychological studies that could potentially like ruin people. But anyway, we learned a lot of interesting things, even though now these studies would probably not be, considered ethical. But this one was not so bad. Dr. Robert Rosenthal, he gave teachers a list of students with their locker numbers, totally arbitrary, not connected to anything, locker numbers. And he said this was the result of like a very important IQ test, and the students that scored higher are destined for success, and they're great, and they're going to do well in the year. And the other, the ones who scored higher. It's this very new, test. I think he said, if I remember correctly, I think he said it was from Harvard, whatever it is. And the teacher was like, okay, great. But little did they know that it had nothing to do with any student actually. And when he followed through the year, when he checked up on the students, he saw that those students were doing better. The teachers praised them more. The teachers looked at them differently. Therefore, they looked at themselves differently. So I think that it's so telling that it really is arbitrary the way that we look at ourselves. We could choose how we look at ourselves and how others choose to perceive us, and create different outcomes for ourselves, um, and 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 this, I think, and now I'm going to connect this all to Rosh Hashanah. I mean, I was, why I chose these theories for Rosh Hashanah, and why I feel like this is a bit of the psychology that should guide us in Rosh Hashanah thinking, is that, like I said, one of the main focuses of Rosh Hashanah is Yom Hazikaron, right? Is the day of memory. And why is memory so important? I mean, I'm not going to go so deep into memory because that's a whole nother thing, and we don't have that much time. But memory essentially establishes two things. It could establish your identity, and it could establish your, it helps you judge and evaluate where you stand in terms to where you want your identity to stand. Like, where am I in that moment? And the outcome of that is allowing us to be self-reflective and seeing if we need to do teshuvah or not. Now, what is teshuvah, right? The main focus of Rosh Hashanah, right? It's the first day of Aseret Yemei Teshuvah, right? We start Rosh Hashanah, 2 Kippur, 10 days, Aseret Yemei Teshuvah. That's all we talk about, all we're focused on. What does that even really mean? And I think that in order to really do proper teshuvah, I think you need to have the ability to be an optimalist and the ability to have a growth mindset. Because what does proper teshuvah really mean? Okay, and what does it really mean? It essentially means I'm going to read the Rambam in a second, but it essentially means you're changing your mindset and you're changing the trajectory and the path that you're on to say, this is not driving, these actions are not driving with what I feel is appropriate for my life. So I have to shift that. And in order to do teshuvah and really believe that you can shift that, then you have to say, I am capable of change. Because if you just say, oh, I can't change, this is who I am, woe is me, I do these sins, I'm tempted by these things, I'm not, so then you don't have the ability to do teshuvah because you don't believe you're capable to change. But if you believe that you are capable to change and life is a process and it's about the journey, not the destination, then you're able to do your own teshuvah, fix your own relationship with yourself and God, and accept other people's teshuvah. And excuse me for saying this, but something that really bugs me is when people, before Rosh Hashanah, they send it right on Instagram or Facebook, or they send mass texts, forgive me for everything. And it's like, that is like, to me, that is like the most wasted message and the antithesis of teshuvah, because teshuvah is about fixing the relationship and fixing where you stand. And if I'm just sending a blanket text or writing a message on a social media that I don't know who's seeing, that's not fixing any relationship. If I really believe I hurt this person and I damage our relationship and I want to fix our relationship, then I have to really talk it out and say, I really feel like our relationship is not where it should be. Let's fix X, Y, and Z. And really, it's a process, right? So what Rambam talks about here, he says, Ezo hi tshuva gemura, what's full tshuva? Ze sheba liyado davar she'avar bo ve'efshar בידו לעשות ופרש ולא עשה מפני תשובה ולא מיראה ולא מכישלון כוח. Sorry. So what does he say? He says tshuva gemura is when someone like genuinely leaves the sin and it's not part of him anymore. What does that mean? He could do the same sin is put in front of him, and he's able to say, I am not doing that anymore, not because he's afraid or not because he's not able to, but because he genuinely does not see that fits into his narrative anymore of who he is. And he gives the example that, I don't know if I brought the example here, but it says like he sinned with a certain woman and he sees the same woman and she's equally as beautiful and he's equally capable, but he doesn't sin with her. And meaning it's not that he can't or he doesn't want to, it's that he really sees this is not something that I want in my life anymore. Sorry, I'll go back. And this is really, it doesn't mean that it's easy, right? It's very hard to really shift that mindset and say if this thing I want or don't want is part of my life. Yes, we have our natures. Nature, we talked about in the beginning a little bit about nature versus nurture. Yeah, people do have certain dispositions. People do have certain personality traits, but that doesn't mean that you can't shift them, right? That's the whole idea of the growth mindset, that you can have the ability to shift them and move forward from them. And Moshe actually, Moshe tells us this in Devarim, and he says in Devarim before he dies, he gives obviously a lot of advice to the people, and he says, this mitzvah that I'm telling you today is not far from you. It's not wondrous. Lo b'shamayim, it's not the stars. Sorry. Like I can't attain to that level, right? Lo me'evet layam, it's not across the sea that I would say mi aved lanu, that how will I ever get there? It's close to you in your heart and in your mouth to do. And there's different opinions of what hamitzvah hazot is. Some, but there's a lot of the commentators do say the mitzvah hazot is tshuva. And what I find interesting about this is he never says once that it's something easy to do. He's never saying like, oh, you got this, but he's saying it's attainable. He's saying, yes, it's a process, but it's doable. And don't ever say that I'm stuck and I can't change. No, he's saying you have the ability to change, as easy or hard as that may be for you in whatever area it may be. So I think that that's also connected to the way we look at ourselves and the confidence we give ourselves, like if I really could do that. This is a quote from Tal Ben Shachar, where he says, the first thing to do to become happier, paradoxically, is to accept the painful emotions and to accept them as part and parcel of being alive. And I think that if you exchange the words becoming happier to doing teshuvah, I think that's also very true in the sense of, if I accept that, yes, I didn't do things the way I wanted to this past year. My relationship with God is not necessarily where I want it to be in this area. I know that that I want to work on these things. I have to be in that pain a minute and accept that as part of the process of being a human being and growing and changing. And then I could become happier in the sense of I could change it to where I want it to be, essentially. And not getting stuck and saying, oh, this is what I am, sorry, that's who I am. And I think a way to do this is, I'm just checking the time, we're almost here. The way to do this is by goal setting. And I saw this little acronym to be a smart goal setter. And I really thought it was, it's cute, but I think it's also very, very helpful. So when you're setting a goal, whether it be in terms of God and mitzvot and relationship with God, or in terms of yourself or your relationship with your children, your spouse, your friends, whatever it may be, to make these goals smart, meaning specific, something that's not, oh, I want to be, it's very specific, measurable, something that you could say, you could see when and how you were able to do it, or when you achieved it, achievable, right? It's not something that I can't do. Like, I'm not going to say all of a sudden I'm going to be, a swimmer like Michael Phelps because I don't train, whatever. So something that you physically and mentally have the capacity for at that moment, realistic, again, right? It's something that's real to who you are and your relationships and your life and where you are right now. And a goal you had 2 years ago could be way harder than it is now, or way easier than it is now. So, and again, and last T, timely, to be able to do it in a certain amount of time, to give yourself that it's not going to take me 100 years to do this. And that goes back, I think, to the specific part, that when it's specific, it has the ability to be timely. So this also is a quote from Tal Ben Shachar. Attaining lasting happiness requires that we enjoy the journey on our way towards a destination we deem valuable. Happiness is not about making it to the peak of the mountain, nor is it about climbing aimlessly around the mountain. Happiness is the experience of climbing towards the peak. So I think that that's also about our goals, our relationship with God, is that we're never going to be perfect. And that's the beauty of it, that we have until, we're always in process until we die, right? Until 120. So we always have that journey to build and go up. And again, it's not aimlessly, but the journey is not the end all. It's the process of the journey in a way of where I want to go. And this is something which is beautiful about Elul and Rosh HaShana, is that we're not alone. It's a very hard thing to do, to truly have self-awareness and to change and to see where you need to grow and what you want to move forward in. And it says that kebatcho shel ulam, that you open me the smallest opening of a pin needle, and I will open you the opening of an auditorium. And I think I put the image here of the hands reaching, is I think that God's saying, you start the process and I'm going to reach with you. I'm going to help you. If you genuinely want to change and want to better yourself and want to self-evaluate and have growth, then God is there with you every step of the way, especially in this time of Elul, in this time of Rosh HaShana and judgment. So I think that's, and I'm not saying this in a la-di-da type of way. I'm saying it in a way of giving us strength to use that to better to give ourselves confidence. Now I'm looking at the chat for a second. He's a great speaker. I'm guessing talking about Talmud Shachar. Yeah, he is a great speaker. Yeah, and my dad just quoted. Yeah, I don't know who this quote is, Dad, but my dad wrote me privately. You may not be able to control every situation and its outcome, but you can control your attitude and how you deal with it. Which is also, it's about also. I can't control what's going on, especially now. I mean, I don't know if anyone's. I mean, I see Moe's here. Hi, Moe, living in Israel. Israel is a big mess right now, and. Oh, Alana, hi, Alana. I see a few of my Israeli friends here, and we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. Actually, tonight, I don't know if Bibi's talking right now. We don't know what the holiday is going to bring. We have no certainty, but we have to sort of just say, this is the journey, this is where we are, and I could freak out about it, or I could just say, this is going to be an interesting year, and we'll do the best we can. So I really wish, myself included, more than anyone else. I made this class honestly because it's things that I need to work on. So I chose to talk about it so that I could be saying it to myself. But I really wish us all the ability to really dive into a life of growth mindset and to train ourselves to become optimalists as opposed to perfectionists, and help us shift our relationships with ourselves, with God, especially in this time. And really, I think with all those around us, that hopefully we could all always continue to grow, whether it be in our Judaism, whether it be in any aspect of our life that we feel we need to work on. So thank you for coming. Shana Tova. And hopefully next year we could be together and not on Zoom.
Amen. Thank you, Jen.
Amen, Janice. Thank you.
That really is scary what you said about your own self-narrative and how that's the way that you, what were you saying about your own narrative? That the way you talk to yourself is the way that you talk.
You talk to yourself more than anyone else talks to you. Like you're living in your brain. And then you create your own narrative, essentially. How
scary is that?
It's very scary. The mind is a very powerful thing. It's very scary.
No, but then it's also an issue because every relationship that you have, it refers back to your own self.
Of course.
If you have a flawed self-narrative, then every relationship you is going to be affected. No, she froze.
No, yeah, I heard you. You were choppy, but I heard you. You hear me?
Jen?
Oh, no. Yeah, you hear me? Hello?
Oh.
We hear you.
Okay. No, Doris, I think that what you're saying is right, but I think you're saying it. You hear me, though? I think she froze. I think we lost her. Doris, you hear me?
Lost you before. What's up?
No, I'm saying I think what you're saying is 100% right, but I'm hearing from your tone like you're looking at it as a negative thing, and I think it shouldn't be looked at as a negative thing. I think it should be looked at as empowering of like I could only change my own mindset. So if I change my mindset, and that in turn will help change my relationships. So look at that power that I have.
That's the fixed mindset versus a growth mindset.
Exactly,
the fixed mindset is like, oh no, that's it, I'm done.
Right, exactly. Like what you your tone and what you were just saying right now is like, oh, this is so daunting, and this is who I, how can I do that? Yeah. But as opposed to looking at it as an empowering thing, as saying, wow, I have this ability to shift my thought, which could shift so many things, and I think that's what Moshe says when he's saying lo rechoka. He's not saying that it's easy, but he's saying
it's not beyond us.
It's not beyond you. It's not even, I don't even want to say it's not beyond you. I want to say it's only you. It's within you, right? And I don't want to make it sound like, oh, like it's within you, but like it is.
I understand what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
Attainability.
So I think
it's so much work to be human, no?
Oh, well, yeah, that's another conversation. But
Thank you, Jen. Hopefully we should all
thank
marry
you,
to
and we
work
could
on a
talk
growth
later,
mindset.
But thanks everyone for coming, and I highly recommend if anyone is interested to definitely read or watch YouTube. Speaking of Carol Dweck and Tal Ben-Shachar, really amazing things. Highly recommend reading and watching their stuff. And again, thank you for coming, and Shana Tova to us all.
Shana Tova.
Thanks, Ma.
Love you.
Love you, Ma. Thanks for coming.
All right.